the design guidelines, the Secretary of the Interior standards, the Historic Preservation Development Review, HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibilities. Owners, agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you have not done so already, please silence all cell phones. Now we'll have the introduction of commissioners starting on my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Sutton. I am an architect. I hold the architectural historian chair.
Amber Dickerson, urban planner.
Shauna Boyd, interior designer.
Susan Klaus-Smith, architect.
I'm Ashley DeCubis. I'm an attorney.
We are also joined tonight with staff, Ron Vila, Elaine Lunn, Beverly Jusek, and the city assistant attorney.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle.
Thank you. At this point, would anyone like to make a motion for the minutes of June 15th and June 17th public hearing?
Yes, sir, if I may. I move that we approve the minutes for the June 15th and the June 17th, 2020 meeting as presented.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Under announcements, we have three. The first one are the staff reviews for the month of June. They're included in your packets, so you could follow along what administratively we do on a daily basis. The second announcement is that we will be holding a ARC meeting on the 13th of July, which is this coming Monday, in this room here at the Tampa Convention Center. We do have a full agenda for that night, and we do have responses from the commissioners, so thank you. We will have a quorum for that evening. And lastly, we have election of officers. We do that on a yearly basis. We usually hold that election in April. Because of the situation we're in currently, we table that until June. On June, it was at that time continued to July. At this time, I would recommend that the board table the elections to the end of the meeting. Let's go through the agenda, and then we'll address the election of officers at the end of the agenda. We will need a motion if it's the pleasure of the board to continue it to the end.
You okay with that? I would like to make a motion to continue the election of officers to the end of our hearing today so that we might hear the agenda items.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes. Thank you.
At this time, the legal department will address the conflicts of interest and expedite communication.
Good afternoon. This is Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. At this time, can any of the commissioners please state for the record whether or not there's any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
None.
No.
I have none.
Thank you. And additionally, can any of the commissioners please state for the record whether or not there's been any ex parte communication regarding any of the items that are listed on the agenda?
No.
No.
I have none.
Thank you.
Before we move to the swear-in, we're going to address the continuations. We have one that's reflected on your agenda and then one that came in later. The first continuation is ARC 20-157 for the address of 815 Bayshore Boulevard. That was requested by the agent to continue to the September 14th, 2020 public hearing at 6 p.m. And the one that came in this morning was ARC 20-190 to continue also to the September 14th, 2020 public hearing at 6 p.m. And one motion will be suffice for both of those continuations.
I move to grant a continuance in ARC 20-157 and 20-190 to the public hearing on September 14th, 2020 at 6 p.m.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
At this time, everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand, including staff, to be sworn in.
testimony you'll be providing this evening is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. We're ready for the first case.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Can everybody hear me well? Okay, excellent. The first item on the agenda tonight is going to be case number ARC 20-162 at 5703 North Central Avenue. This is in the Seminole Heights Historic District. The request is two-part, first for a variance request and also for a certificate of appropriateness for basically for an addition to the primary structure. Before the agent presents his application, I'm going to go through the photo essay and then speak a little bit about the particular request in this case. So if you see on your monitor here, this is the 1920s era Sanborn map of this portion of Seminole Heights. This is Central Avenue here. This line, the green square rectangle there is the subject property. It's a little difficult to see on here, but at that time, there was a little footprint of a building back at the very far rear of the lot, right adjacent to the alley there. To the north is Henry, to the south is Powhatan. This site up here, just to the north, is the location of the Seminole Heights Garden Center. And then this red line here is the district boundary, which you'll see represented again on this more recent aerial map. This is the subject property. You can see the building that's at the location fairly well in this aerial map. Again, Central Avenue is here. You can see the district boundary here in red, and then the interstate just to the east of that. So this is the view of the property from Central Avenue, facing east, looking at the house. You can see how far back it sits on the lot in comparison to the two adjacent houses. This is a closer view of the subject property. And then moving around to the rear, because it's difficult to see the sides due to the location and the neighboring fences here. This is the alley view. This is the east side of the house, the back of it. Against the alley there, you can see the south, a bit of the south side of the house, sorry, there on the, in the photo. And then this is a better view of that side of the structure. And then looking at it from the north, you can make out a bit of the north side and the north elevation of the house, some of the windows. And then this is back on Central Avenue here, this is the house that is directly to the south at the corner with Powhatan, I believe. And this is the house that is directly to the north of the subject site, a later non-contributing building. And this is the property across the street. And then just giving you a view of the area. This is the Central Avenue looking north. You see how wide the right-of-way there is. And then looking south along Central. So the subject property in this instance would be to your left here. So the basis for the variance request this evening had to do with the current situation of the existing structure on the site. And in addition to the two variances that you will hear this evening in Seminole Heights, instead of having a front yard setback requirement as you're used to seeing in most residential zoning districts, the zoning requirements there have a certain build-to line for where the front of the building is, should be determined to be, since this building is already in a particular location, already constructed. The applicant has applied for a design exception from the zoning staff and the urban design staff for the front yard build-to line. So that will not be part of the application this evening. So with that, the applicant may go ahead with this presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Dobbs with Florida Design Studio. My address is 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. This house is actually right down the street from my office. It's a young family. They just have they have a young child. They're here. Mom's out with the baby. So their house is as you can see, it's a very odd location on the property, and also it's had several additions to it through the years, so it's kind of an odd mix of styles and things like that. But right now the house is basically 1,300 square feet, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And they want to turn it into roughly a 2,100 square foot condition, 4-bedroom and 3-bath. This property has some very unique or special design constraints that we sort of had to work around with the existing building, its location. It appears that on the property appraiser's records that it was built in 1914, but a lot of the architectural elements of the building appear to be from the 40s possibly, and even from later, like possibly in the 50s or 60s. And I'm going to go through some pictures and show them to you. And all the original siding, soffits, brackets, they've all been concealed by aluminum. You know, that's real popular. Typically when that's removed, everything has been pretty well preserved, just needs to be painted. They just did it mostly to be maintenance free, not that anything was wrong with the materials underneath. And another unique thing about this, there's really no front porch to the house. That's a very prominent architectural element in Seminole Heights, so we wanted to do a front porch, and then also along with that a porte-cochere so that we have covered parking for at least one vehicle. And then lastly, outdoor living. Usually outdoor living occurs in the back of that property. Well, we don't have that here because the back of the house is right on the alley. So, and that actually gets to one of the variances that we're asking for. So I'm going to start and just go through some pictures, and then I'm going to go through the drawings and talk about our design solution. Okay, it appears is this on? Is it not working?
We just don't see an image. Shows black. I think it is possibly working. Is there a paper under it?
Oh, I
Oh,
think
he's talking about the
I think he's talking about the microphone.
It was.
I can stretch. Here. So just a couple elements on the front. I know Elaine did a good job sort of showing you around the house, but the windows over on here they're actually double hung windows, but they have a horizontal button bar, which was very common in the 40s. Early post-war houses had that. So you can see here, and there'll be in other pictures, you can see all the soffits have been enclosed. All this material is brick, and then you have a little carport over here. That looks like that was possibly done in the 50s. There's another picture just showing a little different view. There's a lot of brick here. We don't know if it's Portland cement mortar or lime mortar. If it's lime mortar, it's probably going to be pretty easy to reuse the brick because we're going to have bricks on the new porch column bases, and those will be painted brick. Oh. Again, oh boy, that's really loud. Okay, so there's a knee brace, a vented aluminum soffit. This is all aluminum siding, and then the window. Notice that it doesn't have the wide center mullion for weight pockets like homes from the 20s. This is another view. There's some later windows. These are probably double pane with the buttons inside the glass. It looks like there used to be a tree here because part of the roof is missing. On the front of the house, it has a relatively low slope roof, 3.5 and 12. But on the side, this is a steeper roof that has some brackets on either side. And that same gable's on the other side. So the original house was probably a cross gable, very simple, and then it had the addition in the front. There's another picture of the window, typical window, and then also one of the staff comments was the piers. The house is relatively low to the ground, but the piers are all brick, and they're typically 12 by 8, I believe. But a lot of them are concealed behind this plastic lattice. And here's another better view. But they're painted red. You can see that the mortar joint's not gray. Back in the alley, and I'll show you on the elevations, that was probably a later addition, probably the most recent addition, because this is all just concrete block. I could see some strap anchors underneath that lattice there. And then this piece off the back is this. That's where the master bedroom is right now. I think it might have been an apartment at one time. It has an exterior door. It has a really low slip roof, off the back. So Elaine, or the staff had comments about having an existing site plan. I thought it might be easier just to show a survey. And basically all the yellow here is what's being removed. Most of it is concrete. This is where the carport is. This is where the little entry stoop or portico is. There's a planter here. And then also at HPDRC, we were told to remove the fence here because front yard fences are not allowed in Seminole Heights generally. And then all the concrete back here is going to be removed. These are some steps that go to a side door, and then also that door that I just showed a minute ago. So one of the couple things I wanted to point out on this. So right now, this is north, is up. Along this north side property line, the existing building encroaches on the setback. That's one of the variances that we're asking for because it's much more simple to have a continuous load path from the second floor addition down. If we have to offset it, it gets real complicated and expensive. And then also on the back here is like a little over a foot from the alley. So I don't know, can this camera zoom in to the site plan and then I can just move it around? Just so it's, since everything's printed so small, I figured that might be helpful. But anyways, I'll go ahead and start talking about the site plan. So the existing driveway, that's perfect. Okay, so the existing driveway, apron, and everything, they're all broken up and in disrepair, so they're going to be replaced. And so we're doing a new apron here with a very simple score line that's typical of these kind of flared aprons in the neighborhood. But because of where the porch addition is on the front of the house and the porte cochere, the driveway has to sort of do a little offset here. But we're doing ribbons, concrete ribbons the whole way. The front build-to line is basically this line right here, but because the existing building is way back here, we're actually making it less because we're building in front. So we're not as drastic after this addition. But basically, on the site plan here, we have required parking space here, and then another surface parking here, which is brick. This is a one-story addition, which is off the master bedroom. It's basically a bathroom and also some windows, egress windows, because the master bedroom doesn't have any egress windows once that door is removed. And that's one of the variances as well. So this is sort of a vesting variance where the existing building is, but with this addition, you can see there's a slight offset right there. It's 6 inches. And so this is being built within the rear yard setback. And then as well, part of the second floor, which is sort of in the center here, is set back. And other little things on the site plan, the existing air conditioning unit is here. It's going to remain here. The existing electric service is here. It's going to remain here, but I'll have a taller weatherhead installed. So maybe if we can zoom out for this next one. Perfect. Okay. So this is the existing floor plan, or demolition plan. So this area back here is where the master is, and so this area right here, which is a laundry room and a closet, is going to be demolished, and this area reconfigured. This is where we're going to add on to the master with a bathroom. So as you can see, there's no windows here. On the front of the house, we're replacing some windows on the front to be more period appropriate. And then also, this is sort of the outline of the porch. So the floor plan, I'm showing the floor plan because it really helps explain what's happening with the elevations. So you can see here, you have the carport. It's going to have just a poured concrete slab, but you have the large column bases here. You have the smaller bases here, but without columns, and then you have the little welcome walls with steps that go up to the porch, to the front door right here. Over in this area, the door and window are actually going to be switched, but they're going to just keep that wood deck there. This is sort of where their outdoor social area is, what would otherwise be their backyard, if they had a backyard. The stair goes in here, obviously, to the second floor, which I'll show in a minute. And then here you can see the bedroom here, laundry room here, and then a closet. And then this shows the master bath with an egress window on either side, and then a door that goes out to the space here. And then just a really simple small bath. So this is 1 story. And then the 2-story is sort of centered over here, which I'll show you next. So you arrive on the second floor, so you just have this sort of open stair loft, I call it. That's a great space when you have kids. It's like an upstairs living room for kids. And so off of that, we have 2 bedrooms with small closets, a little linen closet, and then a shared bathroom. And then this front room is an office. And you can see how the roof is configured for the porte, which you'll see in the elevation. So there's a cross gable here for the porte cochere. There's a front gable here over the porch. That's a very common form between the porte cochere and porch in the neighborhood. The front of this addition sort of steps back in minimal width here. And then on the back, this roof is such a low slope. We're actually increasing the slope just a little bit, but it's technically still going to be a low slope roof because it's less than 3 and 12. But we did that so that this roof plane can continue over and become the roof for this 1-story addition down below. So maybe if you can zoom in just a little bit. Actually, this is okay. So this shows the existing elevation here with the little carport, the low brick wall. All that is being removed. These windows are being removed. This window is being removed and replaced with French doors, as you saw on the floor plan. The columns and column bases are going to be brick, painted brick, and then these panelized 10-inch square columns. The roof material is all just asphalt shingle with exposed rafter tails. All the existing siding that's underneath aluminum, we aren't sure what it is, but whatever it is, we're going to match. It's most likely like 4.5-inch exposure bevel lap siding. We just weren't able to reveal any of it before this hearing. And then typical corner boards, 4.5-inch corner boards, and then windows with traditional casing details, which I'll get to that as well. So the front elevation, which you don't see because it's back here behind the porte cochere, that was one of the staff comments, is what does it look like on the bathroom addition, the wall that faces to the front of the house. So that's this elevation here. So we have exposed rafter tails here. There's the window, and then the door. It's just a simple panel door with the glass light at the top, but you can see the existing house is here, and then this is the second floor addition here and here, but this is the front where it sort of steps back. And then this is that side gable that has a little steeper pitch, which you can see in this elevation right here. And so we aren't replacing all the windows, we're replacing as many as we can. So some of the windows are going to just remain, but like that door's going away, so we're going to put in a window there. The gable here and matches this gable, which matches the existing 3.5 and 12 roof slope. We have brackets that are similar to the existing brackets that are basically knee braces that are constructed with 4x4s. And then on the back here, you see where this roof slopes up a little bit more. So there's a little odd roof connection detail, but it actually works out well so that we get positive water flow around there. And then the next elevation on the rear is sort of the least attractive one existing because it's just one blank wall. So this is actually, this little line right here is the top of the low slope roof below, and then this roof right here is this ridge right here, existing ridge. So with the addition, we're bringing that roof up. You see the rear addition with just the 2 windows to the bedrooms. The bathroom over here has that 1 window there, and because we're adding just a new roof over the existing, we'll go ahead and have exposed rafter tails on the back here. And then the last elevation is the north elevation. And again, this is very similar to the south side with the massing and form here, and also this existing gable right here. That's the existing kitchen window, which remains, and then this is the French doors, which is going to become a pair of windows. And then you can see the porch on the front. And again, all this existing siding is going to be removed and the rafter tails revealed, so that it has much more original, traditional look. The window details are just basically typical of so many of the houses in Seminole Heights. We have 4.5-inch casing with like 1 3/4 sill, and the head casing and the sill, by the way, stick out just beyond the side casing, and then we have a little drip cap on top, and then we have all the typical section details through there. And this wasn't in your packet. This is, I didn't have any sections until a week ago. But anyway, so this is basically, let's see, I'm going to move this around just because if they zoom out, we'll lose some detail. So this is existing first floor, and we're basically cutting away from the existing roof to do the second floor. And I've done this quite a bit. Basically, you sister new joists alongside the existing joists, but you raise them up like a 3/4 of an inch or so, because if there are any plaster keys, we preserve that. But in any case, that's the new floor structure. And then the new second floor structure, which is 2x4 frame walls with R13 insulation, siding to match the existing on the first floor. And then the exposed rafter tails with typical 2-foot overhang. We'll have a finished 3/4-inch tongue and groove, most likely, finished soffit. It's going to extend past the end of the plumb cut rafter tail, which is a really important detail, so that the end of the rafter tail doesn't rot out. The typical gable end, you can see that was another staff comment. The 4x4 knee braces, barge rafter, and then you see the underside of the soffit, and then again 2-foot overhang on the gable ends. I'll save the porch for last. This is a section detail through the 1-story addition at the where the bathroom is. So we're just going to do a raised floor structure on piers with lattice infill. 2x4 frame walls with R13 insulation, again siding to match the existing. This we're doing a smaller overhang. We're only doing a 1.5 feet, and that's because we don't want to encroach over the rear property line into the alley. So that's why that has, and also it's just a smaller element on the back of the house, so that's why that has a smaller detail, but then it has the lower slope roof. The last detail, I don't know how well the camera can zoom into this, because there's a lot of detail on the columns, but it's kind of hard to see. But I'll just sort of start at the top. Basically, the gable is the same as the gable I mentioned before, with the bracket, the knee brace or brackets. This is a section through the column, and it's basically like a 12-inch beam, and then there's a lot of detail here. Basically, there's a cap, and then like a small crown molding, and then there's vertical members to create the paneling, and then we have the same sort of detail on the bottom, and then a 2x across here, and then we have a precast cap, a 3.5-inch precast cap with a little bit of an overhang. This is going to have radiused edges. That's another detail that a lot of contractors miss. They do these nice concrete caps, but they don't radius the edges. And it's real simple to do. When you do the form, you just put a fillet of caulk in there so you get the radius, and then you tool the top when you after you pour it. But the column is constructed by just 12-inch pier blocks, 12-inch square pier blocks, and then a 4-inch brick. And then the floor on the porch is wood. And some of the materials, I'll go through those quickly. I don't know how I am on time, but we're just going to do a standard dimensional asphalt shingle. The front door will be probably a Craftsman style door like this with dark bronze hardware. It may be something a little different, squared, sort of like that. The back door to the bathroom is going to be, because it's not as well protected as the front door, this company makes, it's a fiberglass door, but it's really unique because if you look at I don't know how well this detail show up, but it has a very fine grain and a very simple detail at the edge of the glass, and once it's painted, it looks exactly like wood. But it's a good application for that bathroom door because it's exposed to the weather on the west side. The lighting, probably just something like simple period style lighting. And then the last couple things as far as landscape. The fence, the existing fence is just a very simple board-on-board fence, so that's, we're just gonna recreate that where we're gonna have fence. And then the brick paving for the parking area beyond the porte cochere is just gonna have a simple herringbone precast concrete pavers that are sand set. So basically, kind of backtrack a little bit, the design solution to this project, as you could see, was all based on a couple, some of these design constraints, and one of them was not moving the house. It just was not feasible to move the house because of the cost and the unknown things that we would get into trying to move the house. So that's what we're working from. And on the north side, that second floor addition, it aligns with the north wall, existing wall. So we're doing that so that we have a continuous load path. And then the rear addition, I mentioned that because of the bathroom addition that we're doing, but also part of the second floor addition is beyond the rear setback. But the addition is set back from the alley quite a bit, and that's a good thing because the only person that called after our public notice was the person right behind the alley. They were concerned that they were going to have a neighbor on the other side of the alley with this looming two-story addition. So I sent her some drawings and showed her, no, it's actually stepped back. And so she was fine with that. If she wasn't, she'd probably be here tonight. And I submitted the hardship criteria. I don't know if I need to go through and read them or not. I'd be happy to. And then the last thing I'd like to say is just, this project was a challenge to meet, all the requirements of the Seminole Heights design guidelines, but also working with the unique circumstances of the existing conditions such as building location, setbacks, which sort of speaks to the alignment of this house with the other houses, and then also the existing details, like everything's covered with aluminum siding, and the windows are not like many of the historic windows in Seminole Heights. So with that, I'll conclude my.
Well, real quick.
Yeah, the variances?
Yeah, could you just go through those variances for the record? Thank you.
So the first variance is in regards to this project being unique and singular. Well, I think it's pretty obvious this property is unique because all the existing residences along Central are further forward, and this house was built, quite a long time ago in its existing location. And as I said before, moving it forward is not economically feasible, and doing the addition anywhere else on the property was just not possible. The second hardship criteria relates to actions of the applicant and the hardship being self-created. Well, this is the way the house was when they bought it, so they haven't created any hardships for themselves. The third one is that it will not substantially interfere or injure health, safety, and welfare of those whose property would be affected by allowance of this variance. I mentioned the neighbor on the other side of the alley. She was fine with it. The neighbors on either side, on the south side, were meeting all the setbacks on the south side. On the north side, we only had that small portion of the second floor that is aligning with the first floor. So that's why we're, but it doesn't create any adverse problem for the neighbor to the north. The fourth one, that the variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of this chapter in the adopted Tampa comprehensive plan. The requested variance is consistent with the general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa comprehensive plan by allowing an existing single-family residence to be modified for reasonable use. And I think that's a key term, reasonable use, because that's what we're doing here. The fifth one is allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by this chapter and the individual hardships or practical difficulties that will be suffered due to a failure of the board to grant the variance. This variance will allow additional living area consistent with surrounding homes in the area. Similar homes of this size in the area that have not already been expanded could easily accommodate this type of addition without a variance. The variance for the side and rear yard setback reductions will provide relief and allow reasonable use of the property. Substantial justice will be done by allowing for the hardships and practical difficulties to be addressed. And the last one really relates to the historic district guidelines and historic patterns of development. And my response to that is the proposed addition meets all the requirements of the Seminole Heights Design Guidelines and Secretary of the Interior standards for modification of a contributing structure in a historic district where possible. That's the key term. Scale, massing, setbacks, orientation, site coverage, alignment, rhythm, and spacing are all especially important considerations for this project, considering the existing design constraints and the historic patterns of development. And that was the sixth hardship. And that concludes my presentation, unless my clients would like to say anything. Oh, okay, they're good.
Thank you very much. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund. Staff does not usually comment on variances. I would like to remind you, however, that the variance request does need to be heard, and you need to request the public comment separately from the certificate of appropriateness, public comment, and motion.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the hearing to any public comment for this. For this portion, we're only going to focus on the variances at hand. So if there's anyone that would like to speak either for or against, please come to one of the podiums. All right. Seeing none and hearing none, we'll move to the commissioners' portion of being able to ask questions. And again, we'll focus on just the variances. Anyone like to ask any questions?
I do have a few. So, sir, could you put the site plan up with the new proposed components?
And again, Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. I would just like to remind the commissioners that this is only, the commissioners should only focus on the variance and whether about the hardship.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you. What is the actual setback of the new, I can't read the dimension very well. So what is the setback of the new second-story addition from the rear?
From the rear, it is set back 10 feet and 11 and a half inches. So
Is that to
almost-
the eve line or the building, the wall line?
Oh, to the line of structure. So it's from here to here is 10 feet, 11 and a half inches. I would like to point out something that will also tell you why that setback is there, why that, this, on the existing floor plan, this is where the original rear of the house was. It lines up with this bracket and that steeper pitch gables from here to here. So this line of structure is where this line of structure is, which is where this line of structure is. And again, from here, from here to the building is 10 feet, 11 and a half. And then we have an additional, I believe it's 1.3 feet. So from the property line from here to the back of the building is almost 11 feet, we'll round up. And then it's another 1.3 feet. I don't know if you can see right here, 1.3 feet from the rear of the existing.
Yes, I do
property.
see it. Thank you. And then the only other question I have in regards to the variance request for the rear setback is in regards to the new addition. Did you look at other opportunities with the client to put that space somewhere else, that you didn't have to put that in within the rear setback as well?
Yes, we did, because when you do a second floor addition, you always want it to be subservient to the first floor. You want it to, that's part of the Secretary of Standards. So the second floor addition, we wanted it to step back, but we couldn't go past this line, obviously. As far as north-south, we're basically just going from edge of structure to edge of structure, which is from edge of structure to here. And the other thing to consider too is if we added additional area here, then this entire property would have a building from setback to setback, and then it precludes you from having anything in this area. And it's always important when you have a porte cochere to have that view corridor that goes past the porte cochere. And also, in Seminole Heights, you're required to have 2 parking spaces for residents, but they have to be beyond the front face of the structure. So if we add it on this way, we wouldn't be able to have our other parking space here.
Thank you. That answers all my questions. Thank you regarding the variant.
I had some additional questions. Can we go back to the site plan, which we were just on, please? I like the question that was already asked, but I have the same question, but to, I don't know, where is north on here? I don't.
North is up.
Oh, north is up. Okay, well, that's easy. So west, like towards the front, why did you choose not to build onto the front of the property versus, because it looks like you have a pretty significant building envelope
Right.
there that you could work with?
Sure, okay. No, that's actually a very good question. And a big part of that is their existing kitchen and dining and living area are all in this space. And whenever we work on renovations like this, I have the philosophy that you want to be as minimal as possible. So you always want to try and work with the existing as much as possible to a point where you're not meeting the client's programmatic needs. And so if we were to completely abandon this and put bedrooms in this area and everything, then we're having to build a new kitchen and family room forward. But we still have the issue of the setback on this side, and also the setback on this side as well, because of are existing right now.
But if you left those 2 walls in place and then did an addition in the front, then you would not necessarily need a variance, even though I understand it would have your own challenges of the flow of the house interior-wise, but for the variance, it says owners are unable to increase the living area without a variance.
Right, and that's the point that we're trying to make is
Okay.
all the existing living, kitchen, and dining is in this area. If we created all the bedrooms in this area, because the bedrooms are always normally in the back of the house, we would have to recreate the kitchen, the family room, and all this further forward, and we'd still end with a one-story building. And I didn't mention that before, but Central is sort of like Main Street in Seminole Heights, and so most of the structures on that street are two-story, or if they're one-story, they're going to have a second-story addition probably at some point. So,
But couldn't you do a second-story addition in the front and still meet the setbacks, even though you'd have to set it in?
Well, no, because it's, as long as I've been doing work in historic districts of Tampa, it's always been very important to, when you do a second floor addition, to have it set back from the front of the house, because you want the second floor to be subservient to the first floor. So you don't want to have a two-story box, basically, or, that's also the
Yeah.
style of this architecture too. Normally with the arts and crafts style, a lot of times the second floor is sort of stepped in.
But you're stating that you couldn't have that front facade, one story, and then do a second story addition and step it in and meet the setbacks? Regardless
Well,
of the interior?
A lot of it realistically does get down to economics, because
Okay.
if you're not able to reuse existing lines of structure, you're having to do some structural gymnastics. That drastically increases the cost. The less spaces that you touch, it saves you money. So if we're having to completely abandon the kitchen and family room and recreate that, that's significant additional cost. And we're still going to be set back from the front. That's front build-to line's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But, so that's how we approached it. And on the
Okay.
north side, it's a relatively modest setback reduction, but the alley, of course, that is what it is. But what we're adding on the second floor is stepped back pretty far, with the exception of the one-story addition for the bathroom. But there was just no other place, if this is where the master bedroom is, to add a bathroom if we're going to have there's an existing bathroom there and a laundry room there.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
it was a struggle, yeah.
Oh, it's a
yeah.
challenge,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
Are there any other additional questions?
Yes, sir, I do have a question or two, please. I note that from your site plan, you have a modest addition of that toilet room, bathroom area. That is your new wing, as well as an entire brand-new frontispiece, again, for your porches and porte cochere. Can you go back over again, please, and describe to us how you are creating or integrating that foundation line with respect to the existing building?
And Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. If Mr. Commissioner could just address the hardship and not a design element of the proposed plan.
I withdraw my question.
I have one question, if you could put the site plan back up real quick.
Sure.
So my question is more for staff. Regardless of where the addition for the two-story is, if any addition or work was to be done to this house, front, back, side, whichever side, would we still need a variance to basically allow the existing building to sit where it sits that are outside of its setbacks?
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation staff. The direction that we received from the Zoning and Urban Design Division was that the variances would be required based on the existing footprint of the building and any addition that they did to it, regardless of which size, I believe, was,
Okay.
that's why he's here requesting the
Okay.
variances this evening.
So regardless of if you were to build in front of it, we would still have the same questions of or the variances for the north and the side and the rear. Okay. Are there any other additional questions for the variances specifically? Okay. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I sort of started off by talking about how obviously unique this project is and the special design considerations that we had to work around. We tried very hard looking at a lot of different options, but sometimes economic things become important. Like sure we could step it in, but if we stepped it in, that creates unnecessary hardship. So it all gets back to sort of reasonable use. We feel this is a reasonable design solution with all the design constraints sort of considered. So I guess that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we will close this portion of the public hearing, and the commissioners will now discuss the case.
Well, in my opinion, I think that while this site was definitely a challenge to design straightforward, or it wasn't straightforward, I do believe that the design could have been done. I know that we couldn't have prevented possibly the variances for the existing walls, but I feel like this particular variance actually increases the nonconformity by making it even larger than it is today. And due to the odd position on the lot, I think it actually makes it worse. So that is what I'm considering.
Thank you. Anyone?
No comments.
All right. At this point, if there's no additional comments, would a commissioner like to make a motion for the variances only?
I move that the variances request for ARC 20-162 for the property located at 5703 North Central Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at this public hearing for a rear yard setback from 20 feet to 1.2 feet with an encroachment of 1 foot for eaves and gutters, as well as a north yard setback from 7 foot to 3.5 feet with an encroachment of 2 feet for eaves and gutters. Based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-114D for the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, granting variances as stated in the evidence provided in this hearing, in this public hearing, specifically that the existing residence is set back further than the setback requirements.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you. At this point, staff will then present the staff report for the CA portion.
Commissioner, staff found that this application is consistent with the Seminole Heights Design Guidelines. The agent did a good job of going through the presentation, and I was able to follow along pretty well on the staff report on the conditions listed therein. And I think the only thing I would really like to remind you of is that there is still a pending design exception application, and that actually should be completed and reviewed by the urban design staff by the 10th of this month, so that's Friday. And so I would just like to request that you do remember to make the, if you make an approval on the certificate of appropriateness, to make sure that it's conditional upon the, or dependent upon the approval of the design exception.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open the public hearing to any public comment. Does anyone like to speak either for or against this project? All right, seeing and hearing none, the commissioners will now ask questions for the CA portion of the project. Commissioner Sutton, would you like to start?
I would love to, please. Let us, I've got two items, please. Let us revisit, please, your foundation treatment, particularly for your wholesale replacement of the front of this building as well as for its addition. Because there's, after this point, there would be very little or minimal reference to potentially referencing the existing structure at this point. So could you go back over again and tell us how you are planning to integrate that new versus the old versus what is typical?
Yes. I was just trying to find some pictures. So let me start with the front, okay? So with the front, you know, it's pretty obvious that this is not original to the house. It's actually very low too. I think this is only about 7 feet or so. And then, you know, then you have all this, you have the brick planter. So none of this shows up on the Sanborn maps. So it may have been built in the 40s, but it's all most likely done, and the windows are another clue to that. It's most likely done after the period of significance. And I was trying to find one other picture of the side of the house. And then I was going to go to the floor. Actually, let me go to the floor plan. Because this portion right here, you see the little dashed lines, that's where the that cross gable is. It has a little bit steeper roof. So, and then there's 2 gables that face the front. So all of this on the front, you know, yeah, they could have probably just left the stoop there and the planter there, but then take off this and do a porte cochere. But then that wouldn't be fitting for the neighborhood, because the neighborhood has porches are such a significant architectural or character-defining element, you know, in the neighborhood. And this is not a contributing structure, so this is a way to give it, you know, something that is very common in the neighborhood. But the original, and let me go back to I'll just conclude by your question by just saying, you know, the outline of the building itself, though, is being maintained on the first floor. It's just all the things beyond the structure that are being removed.
Can you address how you're treating this foundation basis? You know, that floor line down to the ground plane?
You talking about like in section? Or-
Perhaps, yes, or an elevation.
Okay. So, let's see which elevation might show it better. So this part right here is now you can see that it goes slightly beyond this right here, but this is a function of
Could you either, sorry, could you
Oh, I'm
either
sorry.
slide the, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah. So, I'm not quite sure I totally understand your question, but this addition on the second floor is differentiated from the existing by leaving this existing roof.
You perhaps might have misunderstood my question. I understand you've got this addition portion on the second story building, but you also have this small one-story wing, and of course this whole brand-new frontispiece that you've got going on to the front of this building. And what I'm interested in finding out is, how does this reach the ground? How does that integrate with the existing building?
Okay. So the existing building is on piers, and I showed a picture of the piers with the suspended wood floor structure. This addition right here is also built on piers with the suspended wood floor structure, and I had shown that in the wall section, which I can show again. But the rest of the building, with the exception of this wall here, and I think it's because this was an addition at one time. Let me go to this. This right here was probably the much later addition. It has a continuous foundation wall here, but all of this in here is all just piers and suspended wood floor. That's why it's relatively easy to do a second floor addition and have the loads come down, because if you have a concentrated load coming down, you just put a new pier there. Did I answer your question?
No.
So I think, if I could, I think the question is, the existing building right now sits on brick piers, except that far wall to the east.
Correct.
Is the intention for the new building to mimic having brick piers, and we would have a foundation enclosure that matches what's there now, or will a new foundation enclosure be added? And then on that east end, are you gonna leave that as is, or will you do anything to that to make it match the remaining building?
Okay, on the east end, maybe I should go to the elevations. I think I understand what you're saying, because I didn't show any of the piers along here or here. And that's because it was, when we did the as-built drawings, it was just all lattice. It was only today when I went back, based on comments that Lane had, that I saw all the individual piers. So I guess the best way to answer your question is, yes, all the existing piers will remain and/or be replaced if they need to have a new footing based on the loads that are being superimposed on them. But around the perimeter, yeah, it will be piers with some sort of foundation, wood screen, enclosure, and I realize I don't have details of that, but we'd certainly, work with staff on that. I did, in the section here, I did talk about, how we have the pier with, actually it's thin brick, but it's painted, it's not stucco. And then you have your suspended wood floor structure, and then you have a screen, some sort of wood screen lattice here that we would work with staff to make sure that it's appropriately designed, and not that plastic stuff with no frame around it.
I could see the screen lattice effect being foremost and in front of everything that you're going to have in here. Then can you talk to us how you're going to be dealing with that pier, which appears to be also openness at your new front porch? If you can pull up that elevation.
Oh, okay.
See, with this front porch that
talking
you're
about here.
developing here, we see definitely at this point a very heavy expression of the piers, and then what isn't step is apparently, or at least at this point, expressed as being open. Is that your intent?
Absolutely. I understand your question now. Yeah, so this area right here, and I should have shown it better, and then also on the side where you see it here, the side elevation of the porch, this will all be whatever kind of foundation lattice screen enclosure that we do everywhere else between the existing brick piers.
Thank you very much. Second question, sir. I note that this addition, actually this whole of the renovation, as well as additions, are involving new windows. There are some existing windows that are remaining in place that are perhaps out of character in terms of their division or their height versus width ratios. Have you considered at all the impact of having to replace those existing windows as well? Or are you intending on maintaining those existing windows as part of the historical record?
As of right now, we are retaining them with the intent of replacing them in the future. It was just, having some preliminary discussions with, contractors. Windows are always one of the things that people get sticker shocked on the most because the windows are so expensive. So basically, any new window or any fenestration that we were altering in any way is going to be done as shown on the drawings, and we that's why we kept it as simple 1/1 windows with no divided lights. So, and it was my understanding that if you don't mess with it, you don't have to replace it. And I realize in the ideal world, yeah, we would replace every window with an appropriate style window, but if it's just not economically feasible. But I would say if during construction they decide that they do want to go ahead and replace those, then we would work very closely with staff, and we would definitely try and improve the proportions, because that's one of the things with the windows with the horizontal mutton bar is they were trying to emphasize the horizontal, and they just don't look right. They almost look like an awning, a series of 4 awning windows instead of 2 double hung windows, instead of 2 over 2s. So, yeah, that's the best way I know how to answer that question is
So for the moment, we're dealing with a certain matter of economics.
Exactly, yes.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
May I see the front elevation, the existing compared to the new, please? Was the French door the one that you showed us before that had the wood look to it, or do you have a sample of that French door that's going to be in the front?
No, I don't, but I know what you're getting at, and I literally copied and pasted the door that was there before. So what I would say is there'd be no lights there, and that would match this door right here that doesn't have any lights, and also the windows that don't have any lights, because that sort of colonial style light pattern is not appropriate style for the house. So that was, is that what you were getting at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then may we go to the site plan, please? Where are your air conditioning units? Are you planning to change the location of those?
No, it's going to remain where it is.
Okay.
It's probably kind of hard to see, but it's
Yep.
right there. That's where it is now, and that's where
Okay.
it will be.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
I would like to readdress the windows. If you could pull either of the elevations, maybe the front elevation. So it appears most of the existing windows to remain, your concern was that the proportion, the existing windows that you're keeping still are sort of keeping the proportion, but everything new is going to something different. Like your new windows are not consistent with the existing, is I think what I'm struggling with.
Okay. Can you hold on a second? I want to ask my client a quick question.
Sure.
about windows. Okay, I just asked my client, I said, it might be easier if we just go ahead and just bite the bullet and say that we're going to replace all the windows. And so we would like to modify this application to include replacing all the windows.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Kamaria Pettis from the city attorney, Pettis Mackel from the city attorney's office. I just want to clarify for the record, with the applicant, well, you're not modifying what the application is before the council are.
Well, we have, I don't know if this microphone's on. Is it on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have we have some windows that we were just going to leave as existing. And I think if the board is having an issue with that, I think we'll go ahead and replace all the windows. It was just always my understanding if the scope of work is the scope of work and everything that you're doing meets code, you're good. I didn't know that we would be forced to increase the scope of the work to get a CA. But if that's what it's going to take, that's what we will do.
Can I have one moment, please?
Yes.
We're just taking this and he's installing these.
Anything new?
I'd like to follow up on what I just said. David Farrell reminded me if we modified more than 25% of the windows, which we obviously are here, all the windows need to be brought up to code. So that's going to force us, when we go into permitting, to go ahead and replace all the windows.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. I just wanted to clarify that this is not going to be a change of the application because it's already a request to modify the site improvements, exterior improvements. So it's not going to be a new application or changing of the application. I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Thank you.
If I may, I think there's some confusion here. I did not hear any of my fellow commissioners suggest that all the windows needed to be replaced. What I heard as the prior question, which was actually one of my own, was that when you start to look at the new openings that you're proposing, there do seem to be variances in the sizes, both the width and the heights, both sill and head heights, compared to the existing openings that you are retaining. And I think that's the question is that intentional, or is there some refinement that needs to be made to the design so that they align both head and sill height and then proportionately? I did not hear, in my view, that anyone was suggesting that all the windows needed to be replaced. In fact, the fact that the client, the owner, is trying to preserve some of that historic fabric is something that the commission typically applauds and tries to maintain. So maybe there's some discussion point there among my fellow commissioners as well when we close this out. But I just want to state for the record, that's not what I'm hearing, that anybody's asking that all the windows be replaced.
Okay.
Right, so you had made a comment about the horizontal nature of the existing windows and even the window openings,
Correct.
as well as
Okay.
the mullion pattern. And then the new windows that are being proposed are vertical in nature, 1/1 vertical windows.
Okay. I think the best example to illustrate what you're talking about is the existing front elevation, which had a pair of double hung windows side by side. So proportionally, that's a lot of glass. When you start looking at the figure ground relationship. So more typical of this style architecture is to have a little more siding relative to the windows. And then the windows, are just, they're 32-inch windows, like 32 by feet, which is sort of a generic size window that's very common in the neighborhood. Likewise, the windows on the second floor, typically double hung windows are usually the top and bottom sashes are pretty close to being square. They do get a little bit bigger when you have to meet egress requirements. They typically have to be at least 2'10" or 3 feet.
So the north elevation, that one,
Mhm.
we just can't see it, is a good example
Yeah.
of what I'm referring to. So we've got this horizontal nature of the first floor, and then the second floor looks like everything turned 90 degrees.
You're talking about these two windows relative to the ones on the?
Sure, all three windows.
So even if you replace them, the actual holes for the window, the orientation is different
Right.
on all of them, from the top versus the bottom windows.
And the trim is also different on the
Mhm.
existing than the new.
Yeah, the trim was, well, all the trim for all the new windows is 4.5 inches, which again is typical. The reason, for example, that these windows were like narrower is they're replacing where the French doors went. It's not uncommon, and again, I'm not trying to rationalize this, but it's not uncommon in arts and crafts style homes to have a variety of different window sizes and configurations, but I understand at the same time there needs to be some rational organization to the windows. But for example, well, I don't know, like, you know, all these windows are the same size, and then that's just a half a window, because I believe that's where the bathroom is. Let's see. Oh, I know why that one's different, because this one's, this is actually in the bedroom. And the reason it's high is we needed a window on this side that would sort of balance this out, but we couldn't have it the same size as this window because it would get down in the roof. So we just did a half of one of these windows. But then if you turn and go to the rear elevation, then, you know, it's basically the same windows again.
Okay, I also have a question about the restroom door and its orientation facing the street.
Okay.
So it's not drawn on that front elevation that you just had showing. We can see the sitting room window from the front elevation, but so looking at the front elevation, to the right of that would be a door that opens up to a restroom.
You're talking about this area right here.
Yes.
Okay. And so from the front, you know, it's way far back past the porte cochere, obviously. So you can see it a little bit ghosted in. Oh, the door's not there.
Right.
But it would, if that's what you're talking about.
Yep.
So that was one of staff's comments, that we need a better view of that elevation, which is why
I think it's fine. I understand that the door is there. I'm struggling with a door to the restroom facing the street, but that, I suppose, is maybe your client's decision. I also just had a question about the addition of exposed rafter tails. So the existing home, I understand that what is original has been covered with aluminum, but it doesn't appear that exposed rafter tails were, the brackets, yes, the knee brackets,
Right.
yes. But the rafter tails are
Okay.
an addition.
I would bet good money that there's rafter tails underneath there. I've done a lot of projects in Seminole Heights and Hyde Park, and just about all, I can say every single project I've worked on has had rafter tails that have been concealed.
So when you
'Cause-
pull back the soffits, what's all been covered up, your intention is to keep what's existing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I believe that's all my questions. Nothing.
So I have one question kind of to continue on the idea of anything that's currently hidden, either behind the aluminum soffits, any of the trim. What would be your intentions if you do take those off, there's not exposed raptor tails, or the trim around the windows is not going to match what is being proposed? Is that going to impact the design, or would you go back and add exposed raptor tails, or what would be your intention if it's not what you're proposing?
Okay, so in the highly unlikely event that there are no raptor tails, we would have to reassess, but I would probably recommend to my clients that we do the raptor tails, because again, that's such a common character defining feature to all the homes in Seminole Heights and Hyde Park, and only very few new houses don't have rafter tails, and or the overhangs are a little bit less than 2 feet, and they look odd, they look a little out of place. And so yes, that would be our intention, if they're not rafter tails, that we add them in some way.
Okay. I have a question for you. If you go to your front elevation, I think it's the west. Yes. So the current elevation where the new French door is going to be located is a window, and that door is kind of hidden on the side, so you don't see it from the street.
Here it is, right here.
Yes. And there is an existing wood deck there now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any sort of a conversation in terms of having, and I know we're not on a corner lot, so you don't have to have a corner porch, but was there any conversations to have that porch wrap around to where it read as a single porch versus having sort of your porch with your main door,
Okay.
sort of your main entrance, and then a separate kind of wooden porch connected?
So, sort of getting back to the arts and crafts style, typically you have multiple gables sort of facing the front. So if we would have extended this porch all the way across, I think proportionally, the porch would have been a little wide. And then there would only be a single gable here, a much larger gable. And then it's always a struggle to get columns and bays to work with, you know, fenestration and entry points and stuff like that. That's why here it's off to the side instead of centered. Most houses it's sort of centered, even though the door to the bungalow is not centered because there's a center load-bearing wall. So to have a wraparound porch, it would create additional program space that they didn't really need, and also it would create a much bigger roof because we're expanding all the way over to this area. And then also, as I mentioned before, right now, this area is sort of fenced in. That's sort of their outdoor living area because they don't have a backyard. So that's why we pretty much decided not to do a roof there. And also it's on the north side, so it's, you know, it's a little more shade, I guess.
And then from the site plan that you have up right now, that 6-foot new wood fence would be at that corner. So I guess the front elevation, you wouldn't really truly see the wood deck?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no additional questions. Any additional questions from commissioners?
So I thought that you said that that wood fence was coming down and you will see that wood deck around the front?
You know what? You're absolutely right. That was a comment that I believe it was staff or land development that that fence needed to be removed because fences are typically not allowed in the front setback. It's interesting because we're not near the front setback. We kind of wanted to leave it, but I put that note there because that was a comment that Urban Design had. But if we can't have that fence there, at the very least, we would have probably a fence like right here, and it would be set back from the porch so that the porch is projected out, and then that would just create a smaller area there.
So you are removing, as you mentioned here, you are removing the existing wood fence.
Yeah, there is actually a note there
but
that
there is
says.
that, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Actually, this says new wood fence right here.
Right.
Right there. Yeah, and then this note right here says that this fence is being removed.
Okay. Are there any additional questions? All right. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I'll just sort of reemphasize how challenging this project was. Obviously, there's a lot of components to this. Fenestration is such an important character defining feature of architecture, and I think it probably could use a little work. So if I would be perfectly fine with the condition on the hopefully approval that that we work with staff to maybe get the windows tweaked a little bit, and that's it.
Thank you. At this point, we will close the public hearing. The commissioners will now discuss the case. Anyone like to start?
I guess I think it's consistent with the area, but I do agree with the comment about the windows from the first floor versus the second floor. And then I'm still a little bit confused about the fence. Is it just going to be the same thing, just redone?
You had shown, I'm sorry,
We
I
can't
think
ask questions
he had
anymore.
shown an image of the fence, and it was like a
Oh, yeah, I
stock
remember that.
fence.
If that's what's going to be. Okay, okay.
Yep.
That's it, really.
I concur with your comment about, I think the larger issue is all of the different windows, the composition of the facades, so.
Yep, I'm stuck on the windows and trim.
Okay.
No comment.
And the existing conditions beneath the aluminum siding soffits. Truly, what is there? I agree, historically, you're gonna find those exposed rafter tails, but if indeed they aren't there, just to reconsider what the intent is, as well as the trim around the windows and the doors.
And also the appearance of the front French door, I think, needs to be noted in a condition.
As my fellow commissioners nitpick on some details, I do wish to appreciate your efforts in trying to pull together this addition with respect to massing, with respect to the existing building, and particularly its very, very, very odd placement on its site. It's really given you quite a challenge to pull off, and I think to some respect is moving into an acceptable solution for your client. However, you know, we still have some relatively unresolved details respecting exactly what are the doors going to look like and how they're going to fit together. Same thing for the windows. Same thing for the foundation line enclosure. Same thing for the rafter tails and the roof soffit. And I'm wondering if this is really an appropriate time to be discussing a certificate of appropriateness on this design, when certain details are not really completely fleshed out, or whether we should actually be discussing a continuation on this so that these can be resolved for a future meeting and review.
Okay. Any other commissioners like to discuss or have any comments? Okay. If a motion is made in favor, I do want to make sure that the commissioner knows that there needs to also include the conditional, that it's conditional and dependent on the approval of the DE1 20-158, just to make sure that is included. Would there like to be a motion made?
I would like to make a motion for final approval with conditions. I move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in ARC 20-162 for the property located at 5703 North Central Avenue in the Seminole Heights Historic District, with the following conditions: that the composition of the windows, their sizes and their proportions be reviewed and reconsidered, That the French doors that are exposed at the front elevation, both at the kitchen dining space and at the rear bathroom, be revised per hearing comments, that they are not colonial and indeed full lights, and that the existing hidden conditions that are beneath the aluminum siding and soffit and trim be confirmed, and reconsider any design intent if they are indeed not what is expected. And that any design changes that may result from the 3 conditions stated above be reviewed and approved by staff. And a notation that this approval is conditional upon the ongoing DE 120-158 review and approval.
I'll second the motion.
And
All-
can the commissioner please determine for the record that the applicant understands the conditions that were put on the record?
Does do you understand, as the conditions that were stated and how those relate to the project? I do. Okay.
Thank you.
I think you also have,
Oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm supposed to put that they are, because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Seminole Heights design guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons: that the height and width of the proposed addition are consistent, massing and building form are also consistent, the orientation and site coverage are consistent, as well as the materials and proposed trim and detail are consistent. And that's it.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against?
Against?
How many was that?
Against?
Raise your hand if you're
Against.
for.
4, raise your hand.
Against?
No. And
Commissioner Sutton, did you? raise your
That
hand?
is also
Okay.
against.
Thank you.
Against.
Motion passes. Thank you. We will recess for a 5-minute break, and then we will come to the next case. Thank you.
It faces hills. And to the west, you have Gumby. This is a corner parcel. The Sanborn indicates that there was a transition with a front porch that did not run the whole distance to the front of the contributing structure. And then in the rear, there was a transition room that was a screened-in area from the exterior to the conditioned space. In the back of the site, there was a series of auxiliary buildings. There were 2 accessory structures at that time. The vehicular access was off the primary street, which was Hills. To the rear, you do have an alley. This is looking from above. Once again, it sits on the corner of Hills and Gumby. You do have a large apartment complex that's on the Gumby side of the project, and I wanted to illustrate that this property here was carved out to access parking for the larger structure. Parking is a commodity in these urban areas. So instead of using the alley to come in to their accessory structure, they're using the primary street. And you'll see exactly what the intentions are through the photos that are to follow. This is a single-story craftsman-style home that is encapsulated with asbestos siding. You see the siding comes all the way down to grade. It's a lower pitch to the primary structure. There's only 4 steps that aren't to code, but they're 4 steps coming up to the porch area. It sits lower to grade than most of the houses in the area. Just to the east of the primary structure, you have this curb cut that is not original to the structure, and it kind of dies into the body of the building. As part of this request, they're going to move the apron and the drive aisle over to die into the accessory structure that'll sit in this area back here. Looking at this east elevation, you have the series of solids and voids, and you see the siding comes almost to grade. Moving around to the Gumby exposure. And then to the rear of the property, you see the multiple gables, and then this was the transition room that I spoke about in the Sanborn map. This was probably a screened-in area. And then there was an addition sometime probably in the 80s or 90s. That is a T111 that is not part of the original fabric. Some of the features that the house encompasses is on the welcome walls, you have this medallion detail. Although the primary structure is wrapped with asbestos siding, the overhangs are not. So you see the beadboard, you see the fly rafter, you see the rafter tails here, and some embellishments on top of the columns. The period surrounds around the windows. You have a 3/1 original window. I believe the casing is original also because the screen hooks are here. This is showing a portion of what's underneath that siding, and that the agent and the owner will go through. This is a novelty siding that they peeled back to show some of the exposure. These are the windows that are probably over some bookcases interior. This would have been a casement window. Some of the surrounding properties. This is abutting to the east. This is directly across Hills to the south. Some street shots. This is looking to the west, down Hills. This is down Hills to the east. You'll see the granite curbing in place as well. And I spoke about the auxiliary parking to the apartment complex. This is the apartment complex. This was the carved out area behind the parcel to the north. This is the alley. and the property in question is over here. That concludes the photo presentation. At this time, I'll have Mr. Breeze address the board.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lyle Breeze, and I am the design professional involved in this project. What I have here is a site plan, and as Mr. Veal has already mentioned, this will help. As Mr. Veal has already mentioned, the existing driveway strips are going to be abandoned as they don't continue past the front of the house. So the new driveway strips will be moved to the north property line and continue back to the accessory structure. The existing structure is the area outlined in dash lines here, and then the hatched areas are the new addition, two-story addition to the existing first floor, and then the accessory structure is shown here. There's a whited out area which is actually an open portico on the ground floor. There is a one-car garage with a storage area behind the open area. In this project, we're meeting all of the required building setbacks. You'll see that there's a fence line that begins right here, follows, there is a diagonal across the back for sight line on the alley. We follow around to the north side of the property, and at the corner of the house right here, the fence ends, and we have electronic gates at this point. The fence, the intent is to have a 6-foot fence with the top 1 foot of it being lattice, the bottom being solid vertical board. The gates have not been designed yet. We're still working on that. The air conditioning equipment shows on this site plan. The existing air conditioning unit is on this side of the north side of the existing single-story structure. For the new two-story structure, the air conditioning unit will be here inside of the wood fence. And for the accessory structure, the compressor will be mounted underneath the stair landing, which has about a 5.5 foot height underneath. This drawing shows the non-contributing portions of the structure, of the existing structure that are being removed. And then this is the Hills Avenue elevation as labeled, and the Gunby Avenue elevation. For further clarity, I did shade the areas that are existing structure, and then you see the second story structure is not shaded. The existing house, as mentioned, has 3/1 double-hung windows. Our intent is to match those windows throughout on both the accessory structure and on the new two-story structure where applicable. You'll see here, these windows roughly match the windows here on this side of the house. There is a fixed center window with operable side windows in this portion of what is the living room, and also on the front elevation in the porch area. But otherwise, they're double windows with a 6-inch mull between. So the intent is to replicate that mull pattern and the same trim as was shown in the earlier photographs. The existing structure does have exposed tails, and with beadboard sheathing on top on the overhangs, and the intent is to match that throughout. The existing structure is a shingle roof. We do plan to use a dimensional shingle roof. The elevation, the front elevation, the gable ends do have a vent detail, which is a vertical horizontal lattice. The intent with the restoration of the existing structure and with the new structure is to introduce spray foam insulation in the attic. So we intend to preserve those vents, but they will be artificial. We'll back them in some way that they'll still be visible, but the attic will be closed. I've shown on these elevations, I've shown the line of the accessory structure only to indicate its relationship to the main structure. And these are the other two elevations, northwest and northeast elevations. This elevation being the one that the driveway ribbons will pass by, and this outline here is of the accessory structure. You can see the new addition, two-story addition beyond that. The rear elevation shows the shaded area is the existing portion of the house that'll still be visible, and the outline of the accessory structure. Railings, the existing house, again on the front elevation, the existing front porch had a closed railing, which we suspect probably was closed when the asbestos siding was added at some point after its original construction. Being that we're removing the asbestos siding, the intent is to go to a vertical picket railing, 1.5 by 1.5 and 1.5 inch spacing between. The railings on the front porch were 32-inch high. We plan to match that. Of course, on the second story structure, they'll have to be 36-inch rather than 32. But we do plan to match the pattern of that railing. The siding, the asbestos siding, as indicated, goes to the ground. We do intend with the existing siding that was on the house when it was built was what I call a shiplap, a horizontal shiplap, and our intent is to replicate that shiplap throughout on the new structure and the accessory structure. And it will be a wood pine shiplap, so it'll be painted as the existing structure was. The existing windows, or the windows in the existing structures, we plan to preserve and restore. Most of them are painted shut, so we're going to do our best to make those operable again. And I guess in the case that they aren't repairable, then they'll be replaced to match the other windows. All the windows in the new structure will be a new exterior clad window with a wood interior, but they will match the patterns of the existing structures, the 3/1. Where the window is smaller and doesn't allow for a 3/1, we may vary. You'll see the small windows up here are only 2 by 3, so there'll be a 2/1 instead of a 3/1. And again, on the front elevation, we had the same situation as the previous presenter, that this room does not allow for a second window without running into the roof, so we're matching the width of the window and the proportion from the edge of the building on the second story, but it'll be a half window rather than a full window. These are the elevations of the accessory structure. This being the elevation that would be visible from Will Street. The intention for the garage door is to actually do a Craftsman-style garage door with glass lights in it. We had only recently made that decision. The area here is the open area of the ground floor, and then the storage areas behind it. With this door, we're trying to match the original front entry door on the house. Again, the railings will be to match the railing on the original structure. We do have knee brackets under this cantilevered balcony. The windows here indicate the 6-inch mold between and the 4-inch casings on the sides. The head trim will match the head trim on the existing house. These windows here are fixed windows in the garage and storage area. The overhangs on the accessory structure are 18 inches, whereas the main house are 24 inches. One of the reasons for that is to kind of shrink the proportions of the accessory structure, and also to be able to comply with the required setback, the 3.5-foot setback for the accessory structure. Also, in process is a request for the allowable overall height on the accessory structure to go to the 22 foot 6 inches, which is allowed. That being because we are building required setbacks. And again, as mentioned, we are meeting all the required setbacks. The setback from the rear property line to the addition on the existing structure is 20 feet. The setbacks on the two sides of the accessory structure are 3.5 feet, and the setback from the property line on Gunby Avenue is 7 feet. The roof pitches, all of the new structures are matching the original, the existing house roof pitches. This is a photograph, a larger photograph of the original shiplap siding. We've discovered that there was a corner board on the house that was taken off when the asbestos shingle and aluminum edging was added. So we do plan to replace the corner boards on the house. You can see the air conditioning unit on the north side of the house. It's existing. This is the typical wall sections of both the main house two-story addition and of the accessory structure. The two-story addition, the existing house is a raised floor over a crawl space. We plan to match the existing floor height on the first floor, match the ceiling height on the first floor, and then we are going from 2x4 framing on the existing original house to 2x6 framing on the new house, the new portions of the house. And again, the siding will continue down to grade level, keeping a safe distance from grade to the bottom of any wood treatments. Again, the overhang is exposed tails with beadboard sheathing on top. Where the shingles occur over the main parts of the enclosed parts of the house, we can switch to a conventional sheathing. And in the case that some of those, like on the accessory structure, we may choose to use trusses on the accessory structure. If so, then we would have an exposed tail that's tied back into the existing top cord of the trusses. And I think that's my presentation. I'm sorry. Sure.
So David Farrell, Farrell Construction, 3715 West Horatio Street, contractor for the job. Just a couple more delineations. That is a DE1 application that is pending, and we have received tentative approval. They just really haven't had time to process it prior to the hearing. As far as hardware is concerned on the project, door hardware, hinges, exterior, things like that, all of that, we're still in the early design phase and are asking that you allow us to be able to work with staff for final approval of that. And we do have a specification of the window that will be used for the new windows in both the new and the accessory structure. It is a Hyde Park approved window that's clad with wood on the inside, and we have the specifications for that. And again, just the garage door, it's going to be a Clopay garage door with glazing along the top.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. If that concludes your presentation, staff will now present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Avila, staff for Historic Preservation. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines. There was some mention through the presentation for the design exception. This is an internal function that is a joint review through preservation and the zoning department. that accessory structure's height could go up to 22 and a half feet. And we review that, and as the agent has stated, that that's in the process of receiving approval. Additional comments that we had were to provide additional information on the structure itself. With the removal of the asbestos siding, what was underneath, they talked about, on the projector I have, the exposed siding with the termination of the corner boards. The gable ends that will be replicated, although they're using the spray foam, the Icynene, that the applied treatments for this Craftsman style home could be replicated. They don't function, but it breaks up the massing on the elevations. Also, as part of the encapsulation of the primary structure, the underbelly of the overhangs were still exposed, so we know what the members consisted of. The agent spoke about the introduction of a fence and a gate. We had no illustration of a design, so that is something, if the board feels comfortable, delegating to staff. Along with the exploration of incorporating a window on the southwest elevation of the accessory structure. This is the elevation that faces the interior portion of the site. They have a man door there, but it looks like it's missing some additional fenestration. So maybe additional discussion on that item. And then additional information on the garage door. There was not a garage door that was submitted today, but he did talk about a clopay door with some glazing up top, but that is something that they could delegate to staff as well. That completes the staff's finding at this time. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. At this point, we will open the hearing to any public comment, either for or against. If anyone would like to speak, would you please go to a podium? All right, seeing and hearing none. We will now move to the commissioners being able to ask questions about the project. Would anyone like to start? Go ahead.
Okay, first, can you bring up the accessory structure plans, please?
Plan or elevation?
I'm sorry, elevation.
Okay.
And on the Gumby side, which is where the stairs are, the southwest elevation,
Correct.
is there a reason why you didn't have a window on that side at all? Or is that a possibility? Because, and why I'm asking is because it's a corner lot, so it's kind of a nice bookend and it will be visible even though you have like where the fence line would be, but that top portion would still be visible from the road.
That's certainly a possibility. If you look at the site plan, there's a distance from Gumby Avenue to that elevation.
Okay.
And the thought was that
That's
the
true.
main structure would be more prominent than that. There is a window at this corner of the second story is a bathroom, so there is a window on the alley side of the bathroom.
Okay.
We didn't add one. On the interior of the second floor, that's actually a shower behind that wall. So if we added a window there, it would be in the shower.
Okay, well, since we didn't have specs of the door, will the door have windows in it? It appears that they would be. I don't
Yeah,
know, the French door? Okay,
Yeah, it's a French door here, and
Okay.
On the front elevation, the Hills elevation, these are French doors as well.
okay. The gate, I know they mentioned that you don't have specifications for a gate, but normally with these, with the porte-cochere, and the view from the driveway, you're able to see the accessory structure in the back. Is that the plan?
Yes, the gates are intended, even though the fence would be a vertical wood board fence,
Mm-hmm.
the intent is to use an open, probably powder-coated, wrought iron type gate. So you
Okay.
would be able to see through the gate to the accessory structure.
Okay. And then on the main building elevation on the Gumby side, so on the Gumby side, in between the new and the old, it appears that there is some windows missing. There's a long stretch of blank wall, and I was wondering if you could explain what your design thoughts were on that.
This area here is actually a laundry room, and there is a window here that's in the laundry room, and we thought that the window facing the main front elevation was more critical than it would have been on that side elevation. Doesn't preclude putting one in there.
Yeah, I do have somewhat of an issue with that blank wall just because it is a corner lot and that the fact that the fence is not to that point, so that's going to be definitely visible as people walk by. So that is a concern still. Okay, great. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You're more than welcome to speak. You just have to put your name on the record. Okay. So, oh, sorry. You need the microphone. We're going to get in trouble with legal.
Sorry, excuse me, because it is a laundry room, and typically that includes a counter in there, it would be difficult to drop a full-size window in there to make sense. We can certainly do an operational window at the same header height to make it look
Yeah.
consistent. But would it be okay if that was not a full window that matched the one to the north?
Yeah, I think just something to break up that big blank facade.
We can do it in the same proportion, and I think we can get it proportionally to do a 3-over and either do an awning or something like that. to
Great.
make it functional. Okay.
Great. And then on the rear elevation for the two porches.
The main structure,
Yes, I'm sorry, the main structure.
okay?
Yes, so I guess what was your historical precedence for the top and bottom porches? I mean, staff didn't mention it, so maybe they didn't have a concern. Or is that part of delineating the new from the old?
Well, I think it was partly that, but it was also a function of what those rooms are actually doing.
Okay.
The upstairs room is a master bedroom, so we wanted to be able to, the only yard they have is that 20-foot rear yard between the fence and
Okay.
the structure itself. So that's the only lawn to actually look at. So we wanted to be able to enjoy that.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Sir, I note that you are either producing or reintroducing a picket rail element
Yes.
throughout this site, to the point where it is not an insignificant detail in it itself. You have a whole porch involved with it, you have an upper balcony on the backside, you have an entire stairwell. Do you have any details respecting what you're intending to do with this, or do you have photographs of precedent that you're thinking about at this point
Yes,
in
I do.
time?
Yes, I do. That's the precedence that we were looking at.
Thank you very much.
And for the record, Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. If the applicant could please provide a copy of the item that's on the cell phone for the record.
Sure.
Thank you.
So that would be the basic concept for basically wherever you are discussing railings and pickets with respecting this project at this time.
Correct.
Thank you.
May I see the Gunby elevation, please? I agree with my fellow commissioner about the window. I think that that would be a great add. The columns at the rear seem like proportionally smaller, but I understand it's the rear, so I don't know if it's particularly an issue. I don't think I have any additional questions.
I do have another question. You made a very reasonable point about the gable vents.
Yes.
And how you are handling those on the front of the building, and the direction you're taking that. Is there a particular reason why these gable vents are also not represented on other major gables on this dwelling addition?
Well, you'll
as
see-
an example, the two-story addition on Gumby, that represents a gable end. It does not have a vent system or a representation of one in that gable. If I'm not mistaken, we have the same one on the face of the street face of the garage two-story structure.
One thing on the garage is it is a hip roof. We do have a small gable on the front elevation of that. I suppose there's no reason why we couldn't introduce that detail on both of those, the gable facing Gunby and the front gable on the garage.
And the only reason why I bring this up is that you're going through an awful lot of trouble right now to have these additional elements brought onto this site. And there's just that, to me, one of those little bits and pieces that are just entirely missing that makes the fit not happen.
It's all in the details.
Because I think, in spite of it all, with all the massing you've got going on here, you've made your roof forms work really nicely.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Just to be clear, all the siding on the existing building is going to be removed, correct?
That's actually the siding on the existing structure. Once the asbestos is removed,
Correct.
we'll examine that and see what condition it's in. If it's serviceable, then we'll keep the original siding, but that's what we'll match on all the new structure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess my question was all the asbestos siding would be.
Yeah, that's being
okay.
removed.
Staff made a comment about the front steps were not to code. I didn't know if you could either elaborate or discuss, does that need to be brought up to code?
Through the major renovation and through the permitting process, they'll have to bring that up to code. My point of reference was that you see that this craftsman style home sits low to the ground, and although there's 4 risers, by code, there's probably 2 that will show up after they do the modification.
Okay. There was also discussions from staff about the transition room that was showing on the Sanborn map as an original part of the house that is now being removed from the house. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
The condition of that is absolutely deplorable.
Okay.
It's been allowed to, along with the T111 side, there's a lot of deterioration in that, and none of those walls are basically structurally sound in that. And the siding does intend, yes, sir, we do intend to take it down, and it does have to hold up. I think it's a 2 or 3 inch minimum off of grade to meet code, and the piers are set so far back that there is no screening element to that house at all. You just see the siding disappear and it goes black underneath there.
Okay, so then for the foundation, you're gonna take your siding, as you mentioned,
Yes, sir, as
6
far-
inches above?
Absolutely, as far as we can to match the existing all the way around, so that that's consistent.
Okay. I have one other question about the chimney. So how far away, and you might have to look at a floor plan to maybe show this, how far away is that chimney located from the new two-story structure? And the only reason I ask is I know there is in the building code a portion about the height of the chimney in relationship to within, I believe it's either 20 or 25 feet.
This is the existing
Okay.
chimney.
All right, never mind.
It's probably 25 feet, 25 feet from the second story structure.
Okay.
The rule of that,
10 and 2.
pitch of the roof.
Yep.
Plus 10, and you're on that far side, so when you're that far away from the peak of the roof, you don't necessarily, I see what you're getting at, and you have to get it above that peak, and if it blew backwards, but no, so that's the.
Yep.
It's on the side of the house, too.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't closer, because on the front elevation, it's obviously a little hard to see. And then on here, it's,
Right.
yep, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't too close to the two-story.
The rule is if you measure 10 foot horizontally, it needs to be 2 foot above that point where it
Right.
hits the roof.
Yep. My only other question that I have is where you've added your new two-story roof line. I understand from the side view of the Gunby elevation, you continue your roof kind of under the gables, or where there would be vents, and in this case there aren't any, and that does match the existing house on this elevation. But on
Yes.
the front, you do continue that smaller roof edge around the front, and that doesn't match anything that's on the front elevation. And then on the back, it's also continued. So I just was curious, did you look at a option to where that piece didn't kind of wrap all the way around with that roof edge?
Yeah, actually, well, the intent was to be able to introduce that same element up above, the lattice pattern,
Okay.
to this, but this is a vertical roof here, gable end. So that actually could be a gable end, in which case we'd have a barge rafter to match these, and we could dispense with the overhang on that front. Dispense with the hip on the front.
Okay. Then the only other real question I have is the peaks, I mean, understanding that you'll never truly see the elevation kind of vertically as you read it from the perspective of the street, it's going to be hidden. But the roof edges that you have on Hills and Gunby, you kind of have a couple different heights for your ridge, and how that all kind of comes together at that intersection is a little.
You referring to this area here?
No, up above, so at the very top. So that roof ridge, that peak kind of comes along and then has to die back down.
Yeah, the reason for that is if you look at the rear elevation, there is a gable over the porch.
Right.
So the gable takes precedence over the.
So I guess my question is,
continuation.
did you look at a way to simplify this? Because especially the northeast elevation, you see where that roof line, kind of the top kind of is flat, then comes up, then goes back down and is flat, and all three are different elevations. Was there any sort of consideration given to that, so where it kind of read as a single plane?
Well, what I had considered is that over this area here, if this ridge line were continued through, you'd end up with a gable over these windows, so that this would come down and you'd have another hip right here, and then you could, in essence, have the same gable end treatment that we're providing on the Gunby Avenue side. And so I had considered it both ways. I just thought, being that it's on the back of the house and not really visible from either street, it was kind of an added complication, but.
Okay. Could you go back to the prior sheet that had the elevations on? Yes.
This?
So the northeast elevation, the windows, so I'm assuming that the French doors, all four of those French doors, are those going to be true French doors, or are those going to be accordion kind of?
No, they're true. They're fixed side lights with operable center French doors.
And then the four windows that you have above those on the second floor on the northeast, the proportions of those don't really seem to, I mean, they're not the same size as the French doors down below. And then that's kind of the only spot where that style is in the building. Did you look at anything else that kind of matched anywhere else for your windows?
Well, the reason for that is that is the master bedroom on the second floor, and it's really the only bed wall. The rear wall are French doors leading to the porch. There's a door going to the bathroom, and then there's a door going to the stairwell. So the only logical bed wall would be that north wall.
Okay. Could we go to the accessory structure elevations real quick?
Yep.
So, understanding the plan, there's that corner, kind of in the southwest or southeast corner that's open. We'll have the two-story above. On the southwest elevation, it looks like it is just clearly open, but then in the southeast, it appears that there's cabinets that are going to be in that. Is that, I would imagine, maybe an outdoor kitchen or something?
Yeah, that's intended to be like an outside loggia area, so there will be like an outside kitchen.
Okay. Is there any sort of a, not necessarily screening, but will that be visible from the front in order to, kind of, how would you hide that, I guess, if it is just truly a cabinet and kind of a kitchen
If
area?
you look at this elevation, and then you look at the garage elevation, probably only, if I line that up, probably only about 2 foot of that open area would be visible if you were looking, straight on in a two-dimensional way at the garage. Only about 2 foot of that would be visible from the street.
But you also have a fence and gate in front of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But the gate is transparent. Didn't you say
Yes.
that would be a metal gate?
Well, the gate is transparent, but if you look at the site plan, there is a portion of wood fence right here.
Perfect.
So that actually, if you follow the line of the driveway, that wood fence would block all of that on a straight line view.
Okay. Yeah, just typically you wouldn't see kind of that exposed, I don't want to call it an outdoor kitchen, but exposed outdoor kitchen for this. So just curious of how that would kind of be hidden.
Yeah, to that point, I wonder if you were to just like sort of enclose the cabinets, like extend that wall to enclose the cabinets.
Oh, yeah, we could easily, right here, we could actually put a wing wall.
Yeah.
That the cabinets don't come all the way to the front corner, but if we had a wing wall there, maybe they could.
Yeah. Good solution.
And then do you have any, I don't think we do, but do you have any details for knee brackets, any additional drawings that were not submitted or shown?
I don't have a drawing of that. I'm working on additional drawings that can certainly be included.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have questions or?
I actually have one question. If you could go back to the elevations for the accessory structure, please.
Sure.
I just want clarity on the window, or not the windows, the doors, the glass doors. Here on the accessory structure, they're colonial style. But when you show us the main structure, we have, I believe they were full light. So is this truly your intent for the accessory structure?
Well, actually, the original structure didn't have any French doors.
Understood, but we're also talking about a period in the historic time frame for the district, and you have zoned in on the craftsman style. So just want some clarity on the intent, because you will see those, especially the upper ones, from the street view, a perspective view or a straight-on view. So just some clarity there between the accessory structure and the main structure in terms of the French doors.
Well, I guess my thought was that the French door is quite common in Hyde Park, and I thought that, being that there were no French doors in the original, that we might be able to introduce that, but there are obviously a lot of different patterns that could be chosen.
The question here is not is French doors correct? It's which ones?
Yeah.
So just some clarity on the intent there between the two.
Yeah, I think the French doors that I'm showing are divided, here it is.
Right, so if you put
Like
the.
15 light. They
put-
could be
Put
less.
the main house rear porch elevation up right next to it, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Commissioner, are you driving that it's a Craftsman style, they ought to be just clear lights?
I'm asking whether or
Yes,
not,
ma'am. And that-
whether or not the accessory structure and the main structure are to match or not. If that was truly the intent, that the accessory structure has a varying light
Yes, ma'am.
philosophy from the main structure.
And yes, ma'am, whatever is the commission's pleasure, if they would like the one light so that there's more consistency, or that it matched the French doors, I don't think the clients have a problem with that. It's, it's fine. It's a design element, and whatever the commission feels is appropriate there. Typically, the accessory structures are demure structures, so they do have a little less fenestration on them, although obviously it's more than a carriage house, it's a garage apartment now. So, sorry.
Hi, Lisa Van Fossen, homeowner. Our intent is to preserve the integrity of the home as it was 100 years ago. And so what we would like to do is our doors, we want them to be as time period as they possibly can. So they will all match. Whatever we end up putting on the balcony up and, on the porch on the main home will be also the same doors that we put on the balcony on the accessory structure.
Thank you.
Same thing with the front door. The front door that's put on the front will be the same door that is the door going up the stairs to the accessory. They will all match. I'm
Thank
too OCD to have 25 different kinds of doors. So.
All right. Thank you very much. That's it for me.
Any additional questions from commissioners? Okay. At this point, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I think the only rebuttal I have would be that I'm pleased to be able to work with a client that does appreciate historic precedents in architecture, and that's what we're trying to do, is to, take the elements from the original house and use those on the new structure.
And certainly all of the issues that were proposed by the various commissioners, if they want to incorporate that, it's the commission's, pleasure to provide, propose for an approval. We'd be happy to incorporate all those elements that we've talked about tonight into that proposal.
Thank you. At this point, we will be closing the public hearing, and the commissioners will now discuss the case. Anyone like to start?
Allow me to start, please. I would like to make a general statement that I think that this is a reasonably well-considered program for the renovation of an historic structure, in addition to an historic structure, as well as an accessory structure to the whole site. A lot of time and effort's gone into, obviously, to integrate all of those factors involved. It is not an insubstantial project at this point in time. However, I do wish to point out that what we don't have for this review is a substantial package respecting your materials, your componentries, your significant elements, doors, windows of all kinds. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And these are things that are traditional and typical of this type of a presentation at this point in time, even if it is preliminary in its nature. It should be still nonetheless considerably comprehensive in its nature so that decisions can be made. We've had a lot of discussions about some of these elements today. Things are still up in the air, which leaves us, to the point where in aggregate, these are not minor details anymore. This is a major part of the whole project. And with the lack of the information at hand, is it really fair to expect the staff to coordinate such a lion's share of this renovation? Just a point made. This detail element, the materials, the cut sheets, or by historical precedence, a photographic record, is a big hole in this presentation. Makes it very difficult for us to take a look at this as a whole.
I guess I'm comfortable, I concur with Mr. Sutton's assessment that the finishes should be here, but I'm comfortable with moving forward with certain conditions. I think the transparent gate, the window on Gumby, the additional vents, and then the matching doors, of course. I think as long as all of those elements are as a condition, I'm comfortable moving forward. And it is a beautiful house, and it's going to be even more beautiful, so thank you.
I don't have any comments. I would like to summarize the conditions that we have discussed.
Okay.
So I have the additional vents, the transparent gate, window addition at Gumby, the wing wall at the loggia from the front elevation, and the consistency of the French doors, in addition to the hardware, lighting, and garage door specifications.
So I'd like to add commentary. I concur with Commissioner Sutton. I think there are a lot of missing pieces here, and there's a lot that we're potentially handing to staff to review and approve that we would normally see. Even in this time of COVID, I would expect to see cut sheets for design intent for much of the elements that we discussed. Another thing, I'm a little bit uncomfortable of the style of the rear porch addition. I find that to be more in the colonial mannerisms rather than a craftsman language. The discussion about the roof lines and the gables on Gumby, and the introduction of a hipped sort of gabled condition, which doesn't currently exist in this house or in what we've seen as precedent that's been offered here tonight, either by staff or by the agent. They just don't seem consistent. I think reflecting upon the historic record that's within the existing structure is important to review and reconsider. So I think some of the comments made when Commissioner Greco was asking questions about the roof forms, especially at the gable ends, were right on point. Another one, the discussion about how the roof lines came together at the rear, whether or not there should be a reassessment of that. I do feel that there is some refinement there that could be made that's more consistent with what you would find in the district from the historic record and precedents. And the idea of a cross gable to refine those roof lines might not be a bad move in that regard. So I do have great reservations about this moving forward.
Thank you.
Nothing additional.
I would like to just reiterate, I think the design is getting there. I think there are a lot of details, as the commissioners have stated, is unfortunately not been presented today. I think that would help us kind of answer some of these questions that we don't have. They might be minor, but the fact that we need the piers, the railing details, really a lot of these cut sheets, which will really help, and some of the other items that the commissioners have mentioned, for me, it's a lot of open kind of items. If a commissioner would like to make a motion, I do want them to also remember that it is conditioned on the DE1 application, just to make sure that is noted on there. Are there any other additional comments from a commissioner? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion one way or the other?
I would like to propose a continuation. A move to grant a continuance in case ARC
Hold on
20.
real quick. If we do continue, when would the next available
That's a good question.
time slot be?
So looking at our calendar moving forward, the August 3rd and 5th public hearing cycles are already full, so this would move to September 14th.
Okay. And then, do we need to ask the applicant if the applicant would like us to either vote, because you do have the vote, or the ability to have us vote one way or the other tonight, or we can put to motion a continuance.
Well, I think that, obviously, we would like to be able to move forward on this. We've spent a lot of time doing this, and we're perfectly amenable to recommendations that have been made. The presentation of, lighting and, fence and things like that, we will provide all of that. It'd be unfortunate to have to wait another 2 months on the details like that. We can provide those, immediately.
So would you like us to,
Approve.
okay, so you would like us to put a motion in to either approve or decline the CA, and understanding that if it is declined, what that means? Does your applicant understand that?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
Okay. So staff, would you maybe want to just state that just to make sure?
If there's a motion to deny this evening, then a request cannot come forward for the next 12 months unless it's viewed by the Minister of the Architecture Review Commission that is a substantial change.
Okay.
I'd request the city attorney's office, please, to provide the applicant with some examples of, I sat on this board for 9 years, and everything that these folks have asked for to rely to go on to staff is well within their purview. This commission for years and years has allowed that to continue, and to allow a presentation that was this thorough and that complete to continue for another 2 months is completely unreasonable, completely.
Thank you. So, with the understanding of that, would the applicant like? Okay. The applicant like us to make a motion either to approve or deny the CA? Yes, ma'am.
So if I ask you to vote and you deny it, then that means I have to wait 12 months to come back to ask you to look at it again?
Unless the design has been designated by the city as basically
So if
drastically
staff
different.
has agreed that, because everything that, and I'm not the most savvy, so please excuse me, this is just my dream home, so I'm a little emotional. Everything when we met with Mr. Ron, there was very minimal choices on a lot of things. One type of window, a few doors that were technically approved. I've done my research on like all the historically correct items. I've worked with these gentlemen to make sure that everything in that home, just as an example, the siding that's on the house is wood, and it requires a lot more work to maintain over the lifetime of a home than if I were to go in there and put like the vinyl siding or whatever that's up, or whatever that siding is that they do. We're gonna go back and put the exact same kind of wood from 100 years ago that we know we're taking on the responsibility, because it's so important for us to be able to make it historically correct. The doors that I've looked at, and I do have all that stuff picked out. If I knew I have it all, I could have brought it. I just didn't know. Are just very simple craftsman doors, solid doors with some pretty little windows up at the top. I've gone to the garage door place. I picked out, based on what I drove through and looked at 50 different garage doors. It's the exact same garage doors that you see, I would say, in the new homes that have been redone recently. It's identical. The fence that I want is the fence that goes straight up and down with little pictures. I know it. It's what's in Hyde Park. I would never disrespect that area like that. But I can't imagine over these things waiting 12 months. But at the same time, I also know that if it was me sitting up there and somebody was asking me to wait 12 months, I can't do that.
And just to make sure it's clear, one option would be for us to vote either for or against. The next option would be for us to place a continuance on this, and unfortunately, the next available is September, so that would be 2 months. Unfortunately, we do have to vote on what's been presented today, so because that information is not included today, if we do vote, we have to vote on what we have. So you do have the option to allow us to either vote for or against, or allow a continuation. Okay, so,
I'd like to apologize. This is the first presentation. It's not the first presentation I've ever made, but it's first in a number of years. So I was a little at a loss to know all the materials that would be required for this. I thought I was being coached on that, but obviously I didn't provide everything. Is it possible to amend that motion to require us to submit all of those things you're asking for within, say, the next week?
unfortunately, no. So we have to vote based off of what we have presented to us today. Unfortunately, because that was not presented to us, we can't kind of rely on that. I do have a question for legal. If a motion from a commissioner was moved to approve it and we voted and that did not pass, then we would have the option to either.
It would go to the next available, if the motion.
So I guess my question is, if a commissioner asked for a motion of approval and that is not passed, would we then need to make a motion to either continue, have a continuation, or for a denial?
I don't understand your question.
So I guess my
No, it
question
just
is,
fails.
let's say a commissioner.
It would just fail. Your
Okay.
motion would fail.
We couldn't then put forward a continuance.
Your motion would fail and it would go to the next available agenda to
Yeah.
rehear it.
So it's
Denial
the
by
same
default.
With
escalation
it
Okay.
have
as
substantial changes.
continuance, same thing. But
So-
the denial puts it 12 months.
So if somebody, but if the motion that's made is a motion to approve it and you vote, then basically it's the same as a continuance. I would go to September,
Right,
correct?
right.
So yes,
that-
I would graciously like to ask that if a motion was made to approve it,
Could
Okay.
that then I would go to the
legal,
September meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
For a new
No.
hearing?
With the
No.
complete
Would the
package.
commissioners would like, and I don't want to, so the commissioners can either vote to approve the certificate of appropriateness, or the commissioners could state a motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness. Or the commissioners could make a motion to, based on their approval of the applicant, to continue the hearing in order to gather additional information. But to go back and forth about what the scenarios are is inappropriate. And it's either the board puts forth the motion, or the commission puts forth a motion to approve or deny or request the continuance.
okay, and I do apologize. My only question was if we put a motion forward to approve with conditions and that is,
Then the
Not
motion will
approved.
fail.
okay. Would any commissioners like to make a
I'm
motion?
unclear if they wanted the continuance or if they wanted a
And that's correct.
That's-
There's been no indication from the applicant that they want a continuance.
Okay. I move to grant certificate.
Unless the applicant makes it known for the record that they would like a continuance.
Well, certainly, if it were not going to be approved tonight, we would like a continuance.
So we'll have to vote.
Because we can't tell you
Yeah,
whether
we-
it's
we-
going to
yeah.
be approved. We don't know yet until we
So-
vote.
Okay.
So the
Move
options
it.
is either take the chance on us approving it or denying it, or take a continuation for 2 months.
I think I just said continuance.
Okay.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a
Is that what
motion?
you want? I certainly don't want to gamble on
Yes.
having it be
I'm-
denied.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I would like, go ahead.
I move to grant a continuation in the case of ARC 20-233 for the property located at 1723 Hills Avenue to the September 14th public hearing at 6 PM.
I second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff for Historic Preservation. The last case reflected on tonight's agenda is ARC 20-250 for the address of 1907 West Chaton Avenue. There is a contributing structure which was constructed in 1923. That's the primary structure. The request in front of you this evening is for an addition. There's a one-story structure there now, and they're requesting a one-story addition with some site improvements. First, moving forward with the Sanborn map, property in question is in the shaded green area. It does face Chaton. There is an alley to the rear that terminates to the rear of the property, and then it dies into what was the railroad tracks in 1929, which is currently the crosstown. Just to show the vicinity map, the location of the property, the crosstown how it currently is today is on the northeastern boundary of our district. Our district of the local boundaries are indicated by the hatched red area. This is looking from an aerial perspective. Property in question is in the green box. Take into consideration the canopy of the trees. There's 2 large trees in the area that's currently the vehicular access down this side. As part of this request, they're changing it from this location and putting it on the east portion of the property so it doesn't affect or negatively affect the trees in that area. This is showing a well taken care of craftsman style home with a clipped gable roof, gable vents. You see the series of piers and columns that run the length of the porch. This is an illustration I wanted to show looking down the street. This is down Chaton. Currently, where the drive aisle is now, which is not historically correct, and then you see the trees in the background. This drive aisle terminates about halfway through the house, so if this drive aisle was continued to house the automobiles in a proper location within the historic district, it would infringe on the root system that's there. That's why the relocation of the drive aisle. This is looking down that throat. And staying on the same side, which is the west side of the primary structure. This is looking at the east side of the structure here, and the curb cut will be placed in here. This is not a granite curbing. This is a radius curbing that will be depressed, and then the introduction of the new drive aisle in that location. This is looking at the east elevation, obviously the front porch, and as you work your way to the rear. This is the horizontal siding, how it terminates into the trim boards around the windows and the corner board. 1/1 pattern on the windows. Closer look at the gable vent and some gingerbread up top. The knee brackets, how it pierces through the fascia. The exposed rafter tails. This is the abutting property to the east. This is a contributing structure. This is abutting to the west, which is a non-contributing structure. You see the crosstown in the background. And to conclude, this is directly across the street. And at this time, Mr. Dobbs will address the board.
Good evening. My name is Alan Dobbs with Florida Design Studio, 5502 North Cherokee Avenue. My client is here with us tonight. This bungalow is a relatively small bungalow. The conditioned areas with the existing back porch, which is going to be removed, is 1,024 square feet, so it's very small. And so what he wants to do is add a master suite. It's a 2-1, and that's one of the most common additions, is to add some sort of master suite, an additional bedroom and bathroom. And also the kitchen is fairly small and segmented from the dining room, and he wants to create more of a more functional kitchen and a little more open to maybe doing a small family room or something in the back as part of the master suite. And then since the laundry is currently in the back porch, we have to create a new place for the laundry. The design considerations for this project really are based on the program. One of the items that we're not doing is a rear porch. He specifically did not want a rear porch, but we're making provisions for that. If he ever decides to add it later, it can easily be done as an additive element, which is similar to the way the existing back porch is, which I'll show you in the photographs. The driveway location is another important consideration. When we look at the layout of this house, all the bedrooms are on the left side, so that's like the private side, and all the public spaces, the living, dining, kitchen are on the right side. Traditionally, that would be the side that the driveway is on, but that's not the case with this project. The curb cut's actually on the other side of the house, and then so we're proposing to relocate the driveway to the east side of the house for those reasons, but also there's 2 really nice grand live oaks on the west side, and so doing the driveway there would impede that. And also, we really need to have the master bedroom on the left side of the house as well, so there's not enough room without bumping out to do it the other way. But anyway, so the trees were another major reason that we were putting the driveway to the other side. I'm going to go through a few pictures to sort of point out a few details on the house, so when I go through the drawings, you'll understand. Okay, as Ron mentioned, on the front of the house has the brick piers, the nice square columns, and then the clip gable, or the true technical term is called a jerkin head roof, when you have that kind of feature. So we're picking up that kind of feature on the new addition. It has this novelty siding, which is very common and original. Basically, 2 courses are made out of 1 board. And then it has this water table and this skirt that goes all the way around. The 1/1 windows with the simple casing and trim with the drip cap, and then the exposed rafter tails. The brackets on this house are a little bit unique. There's a 4x6 vertical on the top, and these are 1 3/4 by 3.5 inch. This one is vertical, or it's oriented vertically, but at an angle, obviously. And then this is 1 3/4 by 3 inch, the other way with the little tapered bottom. And here's another view of those brackets. And then note the wood soffit, which we're going to be replicating. In the back of the house, again, you can see the brackets that are typical at all the corners, outside corners. And then this is the porch, which is an additive element on the back of the house, and this is what we're removing. These grand trees are over on this side here. And I don't know if you can see, it's kind of a little dark, but there's standard or typical brick piers, and then the foundation lattice screen enclosures, just horizontal slats. This is another picture of the rear porch in totality, so you can see it's just a simple shed roof off the back, so all this will be removed. interesting feature in the sidewalk, which will be preserved, is there's several cartouches on the sidewalk, so we will protect that and preserve that. And we have a contractor that that does his own. So we're going to recreate that for the new driveway. And then this is not relative, but this is just the shed that's in the back. We had discussed about potentially doing a detached accessory building in the future, but that's obviously not part of this petition. Okay, so in this site plan, I don't know if the camera can zoom in on it a little bit, but because the text is so small. But there's not a driveway, it's just dirt right now, but there is a curb cut here, looks to be original from the 20s, so that's going to be...
Could you move the...
Oh, I'm sorry, move it up.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry. Okay, so that's going to be removed, and we're going to create a new one over here. One of the staff comments was having indicated scoring pattern, so we're going to have the flares come off to the side. It's asymmetrical just because of where the driveway is. We can only go to the property line here. And then just a simple cross score pattern, and then we have the ribbons going back. The air conditioning unit, which is on this side of the house, is going to be moved over to here, right behind this fence with the gate. And then to match that on this side, there's going to be a fence with a pair of gates, so a vehicle can pull past here, because we need the extra parking back here for vehicles, because we can't have them parked out here. But the fence is just beyond, the fireplace has windows on either side, so the fence is just beyond that. Over on this side is where the two grand oaks are, and we're as far away as we can be from them. Natural Resources did not have any comments because we have a note on here that we're going to hand excavate, and since we're doing piers, it's a relatively small footprint for the footing. And also, this is a one-story addition. The program was not very aggressive, it was very simple, so it's a very simple addition to the back of the house. You can see that we're bumping out here on this side, which is where the master bedroom is. Here, we aren't bumping out as much because we're limited to the driveway, but by bumping this out, we're differentiating the new from the existing in the front. And then on the back, we have a little bump out just because we're a little tight in the bathroom.
Could you slide the...
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I should be watching that. Okay, so this is where the little bump out is, which is part of the bathroom. And then this is a separate entrance to the master bath. And then this is the main entrance to the living. And then if he ever decides to add a porch here, you'll see in the elevations it's a relatively simple thing, but he specifically did not want a porch for this phase. Okay, great. Okay, so the demolition plan is basically I've outlined where the addition, the footprint of the addition is. This is the porch that is coming off the back. The kitchen is going to be removed. We're going to create a larger opening here to the dining room, and also a larger opening here to the back living area. And you can see how that's sort of laid out. The kitchen's much wider now with the, because you know, we took over some closet area here, so we have enough room for a small mobile island. It's not fixed. And then the kitchen sort of extends into this space by having a peninsula right here, and then the refrigerator and pantry cabinet here. So that sets up for a nice little breakfast table here, and then the living area back here. I know everything's on the out, you know, the ARC reviews the exterior, but I think it's important to understand the interior layout, because that explains the layout and design of the fenestration and things like that, and the massing and form. So this is a small living room, TV room, with the pair of doors that go off the back. And then this is where you enter the master bedroom here, so you're entering it between the kitchen and this living room. So you have a little hallway that goes into the laundry room, and then you have the bedroom. And then the bathroom, they wanted 2 sinks, and then they wanted a tub and a shower. So basically what we did was we created a wet room, and that's why we're bumping out, because we need a little bit extra room for the tub. But that's sort of a typical thing with these homes of this period, that you would bump out for functional things like that. The roof plan is fairly simple. We're creating the jerkin head type gable on the sides, and then also on the rear, and then here you see the little shed roof over the tub area here. On the elevations, this is the existing, and then I sort of outlined where the addition is. This comes off, and then this is the bump out of part of the addition, and then this is the kind of family room, I'm calling it, but it's kind of small. So that's why we have high windows here, so that you have seating below that. This is where the breakfast room is, so those windows are the same height as these, but just a little bit narrower to fit within the interior space. And then you can see from the side here, the steps that has a little railing, and it's a wood railing, and the pickets are just 2x2 pickets, and then like a 4x4 newel post. The siding and corner boards will all match existing. The overhang and the rafter tails will match existing, and then we're just going to use dimensional asphalt shingles for the roof. Probably should have started with the front first, but anyways, there's really nothing on the front other than you see it a little bit. You see these elements right here, but they're towards the back. Then on the rear elevation, as I said before, this whole porch comes off here, and then the addition is basically this main rear gable with a vent that's similar to the front, but it's just 3 vents of all the same size. And then you have the brackets, which match the existing, and then these are the steps which you saw on the side elevation. And then again, this window is the same size as the existing windows, and then full light French doors. And then this will just be a fixed or an awning window in the bathroom area. And then the last elevation is the west one, very similar to the east one. The porch comes off, and then the addition here. So this is the bump out, which is the master bedroom, which has a pair of windows on either side of the bed, and then this is a small kind of feature window over the toilet. So since this is a contributing structure, the new windows will be wood windows. We haven't actually picked the manufacturer, but it will be one of only 2 or 3 manufacturers that are typically used in historic district. It's always tricky with wood windows, new wood windows, because all the proportions and details are so critical. But they are required to be wood, obviously, since it's a contributing structure. But the casing and trim will be like the existing, again, 4.5-inch side casing, 4.5-inch head casing that extends a little bit beyond, and then you have the drip cap, and then you have the 1 3/4 sill that also extends beyond. The typical wall section is, I guess I'll start from the bottom. So we have piers that are concrete masonry, and then they have a modular thin brick veneer on the outside, and then we have a lattice screen that will match existing, and then you have a suspended wood floor structure. The little red that you see here is I inadvertently left off the water table and the band that are, I think you saw that in the elevations, or the pictures when I was going through it. So that needs to be added to this. But The walls will be 2x4 frame walls with siding to match existing, and then 2x6 rafter tails like the existing. However, on the gable ends, you have a little bit larger. Remember, you have a 2x8 rafter, and then you obviously have the finished wood soffit that extends past the plumb end of the rafter. Dimensional asphalt shingles for the roof. And on the gable end detail, you can kind of, I think bracket detail was one of staff comments. I actually had a detail, but I forgot to include it. But this, you can see the bracket here. It's basically just like the existing brackets with the 4x6 horizontal, and then the 1 3/4 by 3.5 inch diagonal and vertical up against the gable end wall. This shows the clipped gable with the 2x8 fascia, and then this has the same pitch as the existing roof, which is 3.5 and 12, and you have a 1x2 underneath a metal drip around the roof edge, and then the finished wood soffit, and then this section right here is cutting through the little bump out where in the bathroom. So we just have a header there for the width of that opening, and then these are just 2x6 conventionally framed rafter tails. But because this is a smaller subservient sort of element, we just have a smaller 18-inch or 1'6" overhang on it. I had mentioned the fence. This is what we're proposing is just a simple board-on-board fence, but rather than just having the exposed end, Hyde Park seems to have nicer fences, so so we have a little extra detail, on the top there. The full light doors. I know with contributing structures, all the administration, the staff, and the board likes it to be wood, but doors are especially critical when they're wood because they're so exposed to the weather. They have relatively small stiles and rails, and they tend to warp, and they just don't hold up over time. And this product, which I presented on the previous case, is a stile and rail fiberglass door, and I don't know if you can see the grain in here, but it's a very fine grain. So once it's painted, you cannot tell the difference between it and wood. And then the other thing is the brick drive. We're just going to do, probably like a herringbone pattern with a nice border and sort of like a variegated pattern of brick. That really won't be seen from the public right away, but it will be, the parking area that's behind the fence. And the other elements for the details I have with the other projects, which I can pull out if you want to see them, but it's dimensional asphalt shingles for the roof. The hardware, we're using period appropriate door hardware, and then also for the light fixtures too. Those will be period appropriate. This is all on the back of the house. There's only an exterior light at the rear doors. So those are not really within the public realm. And then obviously the shingles are, but that's a pretty standard product. So and then the last thing, as I mentioned before, is the windows. We're going to work closely with staff, and there's like 2 or 3 window companies in Tampa that regularly supply wood windows. So we're going to be working with them to get the appropriate kind of windows for this project. And let me make sure I got everything. Yeah, so that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. At this point, staff will present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. After reviewing this request, this application is consistent with the Hyde Park Design Guidelines. On page 4 of your staff report, there's a series of bullet items that were addressed through the presentation. I just wanted to call out that the final window selection should be submitted to staff, and then the other item that was not discussed is that there is no foundation enclosure on the existing structure. And on page 56 of the Hyde Park Design Guidelines, there's a series of appropriate solutions that if you wanted to incorporate that into your motion as well, staff can move forward with that request. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll open to any public comment, either for or against. Seeing no one, at this point, the commissioners will now ask questions. Would anyone like to start?
I had a quick question. Did you have a detail for the gate? I don't recall seeing that. Is this
No,
going to be transparent or what?
No, the gate is going to look exactly like the fence, but no, I did not have a specific drawing or detail of the gate.
Oh, so it's going to look like the fence. You're not going to be able to see
No,
through
you're
it?
not going to be able to see through it.
Okay, okay.
You said you were using full light doors. Is that throughout the addition?
Excuse me?
The full light doors are throughout the addition?
Yeah, there are only 2 doors in the addition. There's a single door at the bathroom, and then there's a pair of doors at the on the family room side, and those are the only 3 exterior doors. And yes, that's what we're using.
Okay.
Those locations.
That's all I have.
Commissioner Sutton, do you have any?
I have no comment outside to mention that I kind of like this little addition.
I like it.
I also like that.
I have no
especially
questions.
appreciate your roof detailing.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
No question.
Two small questions. Is the entire roof getting replaced or just the addition? And then is the idea that it's just going to match the existing?
The entire roof is going to be resurfaced because it'll be hard to sort of tie in.
Okay.
There's no good transition point.
Okay.
So
And then the gable detail that's on the front that staff kind of noted as the gingerbread detail, is that going to be replicated and kind of continued on the other ends or no?
you're referring to this detail right here.
I think, if my understanding correctly, was staff was pointing to sort of the wood board that comes across the gable, kind of the top where it looks like it's kind of,
Serrated.
yes.
It's the valance. It's the valance with the scalloped edge.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the homeowner just pointed out that this, I don't know how well the camera can zoom into this, but this piece is not original right here.
Okay.
This style roof, the jerkin head roof, it always comes up, comes over, and comes down, and this is always the same size member. I don't know what that is, but it was something that somebody added that's not appropriate to this style architecture.
Okay.
No. He says it's ugly.
I concur that historically that's not consistent.
And that's what I wanted to. I have no additional questions. Anything else? Okay. The applicant is now allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal.
I would just like to say that simple is refreshing, especially compared to the last case I had this evening. So, thank you. So no rebuttal.
All right, thank you. At this point, the commissioners will now discuss the case.
I concur, simple is best. Also commend both the owner and the agent on the presentation and the addition. It's very clean. I think form and massing and relationships and materials and tying all of that in is really working on this project, including the windows on this one. So I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other additional comments, would anyone or any of the commissioners like to make a motion?
I will move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing, ARC 20-250, for the property located at 1907 West Jetton Avenue. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent, I missed it, with the following conditions, that the window specification and the foundation enclosure are approved by staff. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Hyde Park design guidelines for the city of Tampa based upon the following reasons. The scale, proportion, and setback and materials are consistent with the guidelines.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Staff?
Commissioners, the last item that we have to address this evening is we punted from the beginning of the hearing, the election of officers. Our rules of procedure state that every year that we go through the exercise of picking a chair and a vice chair. It's the pleasure of the board. At this time, you could retain the officers that you have, or that you can move forward to elect somebody new. But we would entertain a motion at this time, and then a second for the chair.
I will make a motion to have Mr. Greco, if he is okay with that motion, in order to keep serving as the chair for the ARC.
I second the motion, if he accepts.
I do. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
And if we could have a nomination or a motion for the vice chair, please.
So I would likewise just like to keep the status quo if everybody's okay with that. So I propose, or I'd like to make a motion that we continue with Amber Dickerson as our vice chair for the current year.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion
Amber,
passes.
do you accept?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes tonight's hearing.
Meeting is adjourned.
You're doing a great job.